Josh Newton is joining us today. If you do not know him, he is an internationally known wedding photographer whose work has been featured, ready for this, on Jimmy Fallon, Good Morning America, The Today Show, Time Magazine, People Magazine. Oh my gosh. Amazing. Travel is a big part of who he is, and destination weddings are a huge passion. But you have also worked with big brands like Amazon, Canon, Booking.com to do commercial work. And you've been in this industry for 16 years, so you've got lots of information for us today, and I'm so excited. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having me. I got to know Gavin a long time ago for CloudSpot, and I started using CloudSpot a little bit. I freaking love it. I'm obsessed. So thanks for having me, and I'm stoked to answer any questions people have today.
Yeah. So before we dive into all of the nitty-gritty details, tell us how you got into photography and kind of where you are now in your business, because I know it's shifted a little bit. So give us some details on that.
So I shot my first wedding in 2006, and that was because one of my professors at college, he was a wedding photographer, and he was really good at like self-promotion, at like talking about all the time what he does and where he was going next and what he was shooting. And of course, like he would always have his screensaver pop up in the middle of class, and it would just be these like epic wedding photos. And my dad was a photographer. All growing up, he photographed. I grew up in Alaska, and so growing up, he photographed a lot of wildlife, a lot of nature, landscapes. And so we actually had a sauna as a kid growing up, and he converted our sauna into a dark room. And so he had all the chemicals and then the enlarger, and he would do all the prints in there with, all the red lights and everything. I don't know. I was like bummed we didn't have a sauna as a kid. I was like, what the heck? But looking back, I was like, that's probably where I got my like inspiration from, especially because my work is definitely more cinematic. It's more, I love using natural landscapes as just part of my, day, like as much as I can use mountains or trees or whatever, wherever the couple's getting married or wherever the commercial is being shot. Like I love incorporating that nature. And so that's probably definitely where I got it from. But I'd never thought of photography as a career. I just thought there's like 10 people in National Geographic that make it, and that's it, But after I started seeing this guy's work in college, his photography on screensavers and in his office, I was like, this actually feels like might be like a really cool job. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up shooting my first wedding in 2006. And then I was in college. I was pre-med. I got my degree in chemistry. But part of, I guess, the luck of when I decided I'm going to be a wedding photographer was when Facebook had just come out with photo albums. And so Facebook, we called it in college, we called it StalkerNet because it was just for colleges, and you could only see people in your class, and you would just look at profile pictures, and that's why we call it StalkerNet, because it felt weird back then. But when Facebook came out with wedding albums, or not wedding, photo albums, mm-hmm. That's all you did on Facebook. There's no ads, there's no videos, there's no games, there's nothing. There's nothing to do on Facebook except click on albums and go through what people would post. And so my senior year of college, I shot like 8 or 9 weddings. And so I just posted those as Facebook albums. And I went to a smaller college, and I just became known as like, oh, the wedding photographer, like, because there's only one. It wasn't really cool yet to be a wedding photographer. It was definitely looked down on in the fashion world, in the commercial world. It's like, oh, you shoot weddings to like, if you couldn't make it as a real photographer. And so it really was not cool yet. It was starting to like, break into being something cool to do, but mm-hmm. Yeah, but when I posted those 8 weddings or 9 weddings on Facebook, I got booked. I booked like 25, 30 weddings that next year, and people from my college, they're from Colorado or New York or Illinois or Texas or Florida or Washington, Alaska, they're all over.
Yeah.
And so right out of college, I started traveling for work, and shooting kind of all over the place. And so that was a little bit of luck, right? It's like now, if, there's a million photographers, everyone's a photographer with this. And so, yeah, I think that's
kind of what got you traveling. And then
yeah.
So weddings, and then how did you get into the commercial world?
So it's a really good question. It started in like 2000, when was it? It would have been probably like 2010, 2011. Actually back in college again, I was like walking by this, like our multi-purpose room, and I heard this person singing, just angelically. I was like, what the heck? Who is singing? Like, no one at our college sings that good. Like, this has to be some kind of performer. And so I walk up to this room, and there's like a concert of like 50 people, and it happened to be Colby Calais and Jason Reeves, she was like just starting to get known on MySpace. She actually made her name in MySpace, which is hilarious. But I took, I had my camera with me, so I just took a whole bunch of photos of her. And then it was probably like a year later that, she gave me her phone number. It's like, hey, can you send me all those photos? Like, I saw you taking photos. I'm like, sure. And it was a year later though, she just blew up. And so I was like, I'm going to text this person. And so I asked her, like, hey, can I shoot like some concerts for you? Or like, like, do you need any photos? Because I would love to, work with you. And she's like, oh, I'd love that. And so she invited me to shoot a concert. And then I ended up going on tour with her, met a whole bunch of amazing musicians. And that's kind of like what broke me into the world of commercial work, because it's a hard world to break into. But like, I was shooting weddings a lot at that time, and every bride was like, oh, I hired Colby Clay's photographer. He shot all of her albums and stuff, and so it was really cool for clients to like share about, and it gave them like a talking point to bring up, and they thought it was cool. And then also gave me some street cred when it came to shooting more stuff. But I honestly never really like put a lot of energy into commercial work. But then in 2020, weddings went, just gone. Like, I didn't pick up my camera for like 4 or 5 months. I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, and, that's a hard time for photographers, for sure.
Yeah, and just for events in general. And so a bunch of my like friends and connections are like, hey, we've never really had to have an online presence, but now we have to, because we're selling everything online. Like, can you do some commercial photos and videos for us? And I was like, sure. So I started doing a whole bunch of commercial photography.
Okay.
But then they asked like, oh, well, can you also do video? And I had never shot video in my life. And I just said yes. I was like, yeah, I can do video.
Yep.
Turns out it's a much different world. It's way harder. It does not translate. Much does not translate. Let's just say that. But I actually got connected with an agency, and they started referring me to like a lot bigger clients, like Canon and Booking.com and Hotel Tonight, like all these bigger clients. And that's what kind of broke me into the commercial world.
Okay.
And since then, I've just met a number of different production agencies, and I worked with them in like a lot of different roles and aspects, which I can get into. But
yeah, I wanna go back to some of the big brands. So obviously you've had some very large clients, which can be exciting, but I'm sure it can also be extremely stressful. So what What have been like your biggest takeaways from working with clients like booking.com? And I do want you to talk a little bit about your national park shoot with them. So kind of explain that, and then your struggles, what you've learned from it, what your takeaways were.
Yeah, so a little bit of this is also 2020 because my wife and I were like, well, like she's a stand-up comedian and me being a photographer, like both of our jobs were just kind of out the window. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're like, you know what? Let's just go visit as many national parks as we can in like a month and a half. And so we went on like a month and a half road trip. We bought a memory foam mattress and put it in the back of our like it's like a the station wagon.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called the station wagon. It's like it's a Jetta, but it's like the Golf. It's like
Okay.
longer. And so we put a mattress in the back and got a huge storage thing to put on top, and we just drove around and camped in
That's
like
awesome.
I think we probably went to like 7 or 8 national parks,
Mm-hmm.
um, and had a blast. Growing up in Alaska, I love camping, hiking, the outdoors, and so I loved it. We had a blast. But then it was probably what 7 months later, I was in the office of this agency, the owner, and he was like, "Hey, I just got an email from Booking.com, and they want to hire us to shoot 50 national parks. And I know you went on that. I know you went on that tour last year. Like, is that something that you'd be interested in?" And I was like, yes." And in
That's
my mind, I'm thinking like, "Oh, I'll have like a year to like go to all the parks, and I'll get to plan like." The best seasons and times to go to like each park and da 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 da. Like it'll be amazing. Um, and booking like they paid really really well, and so I was like stoked for it. But then he was like, "Oh well, they need all 50 parks and like 300 cities done in 2 months." And I was like, "Oh, so this is not a one person job." Okay, all
wow.
right. So I ended up doing 15 of those national parks myself, but then I ended up giving like the other 35 just to all of my friends. And I basically just asked them like, "Hey, who's available in this 2 month time, and where are you going to be? Where are you going to go?" And I think there was like 8 of us that ended up shooting all of the parks, but we're all like on a giant text thread and just sending each other really funny text because being like in the Instagram world, right? You're thinking like, "Oh, I bet they wanted like these epic shots and like,
Mm-hmm.
going to like all the cool places and finding like, where no one goes and, getting like long exposures or night sky." No, they're like, "We want the most boring, just no zoom lenses, no wide lenses. You can't even crouch, like you have to stay standing, you have to stand. And we want to show where all of the people, like all the tourists usually go. Because booking.com, they want to show like anyone can visit these parks and this is what you should do and this is where you should go." And so it's like, it's, part of it did sound pretty glamorous. And I had a blast doing it, but it was like, okay, well, guys got to photograph. Where are the bathrooms at this national park that I have to photograph?
Yeah, took away a little bit of the creativity, it sounds like.
100%. So like at the beginning, I was like, "Oh, I don't get to be creative." At the end, after
Mhm.
like 2 months of just straight traveling, I was like, I'm so thankful that I actually didn't have to be super creative, that I just got to go like the last park I did, it was just like I just went to all the spots that I knew I needed to go. I had it like down, and I got them what they needed. And we were so tired. We actually, my wife helped me out a lot with it. We went to the last park we did was actually in Tennessee, and we're like, "Wow, this is weird. We're gonna move here in like a month." As Smoky Mountains National Park,
Okay.
and we showed up, and we took, we spent like a day shooting, and we set up our tent, um, and we're getting about to get settled in, and then we're like, "Wait, there's really no bathrooms here. They're closed for some reason. Like they're just the whole camping ground, no bathrooms." And it started pouring rain, and we just looked at each other and we're like, "You know what? We're staying in a hotel tonight." And we just left the tent. We left everything there. And we just drove to a hotel, which
Oh man.
I don't know if that lowers my whatever as a national park photographer, but we were just so tired.
I would say after doing that many national parks, I think you're okay. I think you still get to keep your
Yeah.
status for being a national park photographer.
Yeah. But yeah,
So,
the schedule was crazy because I had like 5 or 6 weddings. And so I had to like, okay, fly to this national park, shoot for 3 days, drive to this one, shoot for 3 days, fly to my wedding,
oh
then
my
have to
gosh.
fly from my wedding to the next national park.
Hmm.
It was just, and national parks, they book out a year in advance
Yeah,
everywhere. And so finding places to stay was also,
a little challenging.
but you asked for a takeaway.
Mm.
And the one takeaway from that is a lot of time with commercial work, with any photography work, you really most of the time have to be doing the thing that you want to be hired to be doing.
Mhm.
And that like one of the main reasons why I came to mind for that CEO and why he was like, hey, do you want to handle this job, was because I had already, probably like 6 months prior, he had seen on Instagram all the parks that I'd gone to. He knew I was familiar with them. He knew I loved it. He knew I was able to handle the logistics and the booking everything and making it happen. And he also loved my photography. So if like you do want to break into a field like shooting national parks for booking.com or for whatever, like you really need to be doing something in that lane
Mm.
where you're actually practicing what you want to be doing, and people will notice. Brands will notice. They Most of the time people don't want to hire somebody straight out of the gate and like, oh, I think I can do it, like,
Right.
please
You want
just
to be
hire
able to
me.
show that you've done
Yeah.
it, you have an interest in it, and it's exciting. So, um, that leads me to my next question, actually. But before I get to
Awesome.
that, I do want to remind everyone that we're going to do a Q&A at the end. But if you have questions that come up as we're talking, drop them in the comments, just so that they're there. You don't forget what you want to ask Josh. Go ahead and drop them there. If we have time as we're going through these, we'll answer them. But if not, we will definitely get to them at the end. Okay, so you just talked about what you should be doing, what you want to, if you want to get into, say, shooting national parks, you need to show that you have done that or get into that. Um, a lot of photographers are scared about switching to, from weddings to commercial to family and so on. How was your transition? I know you're doing more commercial than weddings now, correct? So how was that transition? Was it scary? What were your challenges
Yes.
in between that?
um so yeah, like I said, I shot weddings since 2006. So how many years is that? 15, 16 years.
Mhm.
And so the idea of switching to an entirely different style of, not only like was I not doing commercial photography full time, I hadn't even ever done commercial videography. So,
Mhm.
and that's a complete different world. But I would say, um, I kept most of my marketing on for weddings for a for like a long time, and I didn't even I still haven't I have maybe one Instagram post that talks about my commercial work. I don't really I haven't really posted about it. I haven't advertised or marketed for it. It's just a totally different world um, to work in because their budgets are huge. Their
Mhm.
budgets are on the low end, 30 or 40,000, on the higher end, 500,000. And so when they're thinking about hiring um, uh, someone to produce or direct or shoot these commercials, so much more of it, in my experience, has been word of mouth. Like
Mhm.
I know I have enough portfolio that I probably should have a website. I probably should start, doing some marketing to different target audiences at different companies. But I will say word of mouth has helped a lot because they trust me a ton already before
Mhm.
they even talk with me. There's a lot of trust there already because it's a pretty strong referral. And in the commercial world, if a director of marketing in Amazon is referring somebody to a director of referring me to a director of marketing at Just for Men. Like, yeah, we use this guy. He's awesome. You should totally use him. It's like, there's no selling that I need to do or marketing. It's already done for me. And so, I still obviously have to show up and do a really good job and give them amazing content. But, someone just asked, getting started in commercial target, that's the hardest part, is the marketing, is getting your name out there and getting those first couple of breaks. So,
with the word of mouth, a lot of photographers, when they, are trying to market, they think social media. I know a lot of yours comes from word of mouth. So is it something in your experience, or like in your client experience, or what is it that gets people talking about you? Do you think?
That's a really good question. Most of it, I would like to think, is how I handle myself on set. So going from like weddings and trying to shoot styled shoots with different brands, working with different planners, different venues. Like, I did a lot of that where, I would go to a venue and be like, I love your winery and I love your private villa that you have. Do you want me to make you a brochure, with all photos, and do a whole styled shoot, kind of guiding your clients through the process of like, what is it like to book your venue, and what could the spaces look like if they're designed correctly, and where could you get really cool couple portraits throughout the whole thing. And so most of the time they'd be like, heck yeah, that'd be awesome. And so I would do styled shoots, but I would be paying for them and hoping that this venue or the planner that I worked with is going to hopefully refer me for that style of work. Right. But a lot of that would come out of my own pocket and the planner's own pocket and stuff. And so how that translates to commercial work is when a brand like Lyft, like I just finished a big shoot for Lyft, and they hired me to shoot in DC, Washington, DC, but I had to like go and look at all the locations. I had to book all of the models. I had to manage all of like, how are they going to get their wardrobe and get makeup and get the bikes that they need, because Lyft had a whole bunch of bikes in different areas that they needed. So kind of like planning logistics that day, there was a lot, right? And making sure all the models had food and were well taken care of and all that. And so being a wedding photographer, it's kind of my job to make sure everything is like chill. And I try to remove as much stress as possible from the bride and groom throughout the day. I feel like that's my number one job. I feel like photos are secondary. And so I feel like that has translated really well working on set, because working on set can be very stressful. So, when I'm working with 20 different people, it's a lot to manage. And if things start running late, like I have to get certain amount of photos, right, for the client. But wardrobe took long, or hair and makeup is taking a bit longer, or we couldn't quite get the lighting right for this shot. It can just get really stressful, but not giving into that stress and be like, you know what, we're going to get what we get and we're going to just make it happen, and keeping just a positive attitude. And making sure that everyone that I work with, whether it's the gaffers or with DP or whether it's the lighting crew or the models or makeup artists, like making sure everyone is seen as a person and taken care of. And just like, even if I am starting to feel stressed, just acknowledging like, hey, like I'm starting to like, it's fine, but I'm starting to feel a little, just kind of communicating really well and kindly. That's gone a really long way. And I think, a lot of my work in the wedding world has like helped with that, because
I was just about to say that it sounds like a lot of the things that you just talked about for commercial are things that the wedding industry would have prepared you for and gotten you ready for. So I think that, even the transition seems like a very large transition, there are so many things that are relatable between the two.
Yeah. And I would say the biggest difference between weddings and commercial for me is, with weddings, a bride is planning the entire day. So
Mhm.
she's picking out the venue, she's picking out the dress, she's picking out her and makeup team, she's picking out obviously who's in her wedding. Like
Mhm.
the whole day is kind of planned. Like I'm kind of showing up to kind of capture and photograph what's already been planned, what's already happening. And sure, like throughout the day can kind of curate little moments, but for the most part, I'm like a photojournalist, right? I'm just capturing what's happening. I maybe get like 30, 45 minutes with them, maybe, just the two of them to like um, really show off my talent or my skill or my vision or my creative whatever. And that's what, I feel like most of the time clients hire me for is for that 30 to 45 minutes, which is crazy. But with commercial work, um, I get 2 or 3 days to
Yeah.
completely plan the whole day. And it's my vision from the start, right? So if it's a video that I'm producing, I'm having to storyboard the whole thing and write the voiceover and, create the whole feel and act like what I want it to look and feel like, taking all of the brand elements and all of the corporate stuff that they've given me and translating that into an artistic vision, right? So it starts like a month before the shoot, 2 months before the shoot, where you're creating all this stuff. And then, but I get 3 days to kind of like be really creative and have a lot of fun. And because all of it is my vision, right? Like I have to hire all those people. I have to hire all the models and all the lighting and all the makeup and wardrobe and everything, locations. So, and getting permits. There's a lot of logistics that like I had to learn, like getting permits for all that stuff and making sure. Um, there's like a lot of like logistical stuff that
Right. There's
can
so
be
much
hard,
that
but
you don't see from the outside looking in.
yeah, but that's I feel like I still shoot a good amount of weddings, but I
Mhm.
like both. I like being told, hey, like make this look amazing. This is what I have planned, and I like that kind of like it's a different part of my brain than, hey,
Mhm.
like here's a blank slate. We just want to sell this product.
Right.
How can you help do that? And kind of creating that from the start is a totally different part of my brain. So I really enjoy, but it kind of has translated um, relatively easily. Lots of learning curves along the way.
Yeah, I'm sure. So between the two, obviously you were traveling a ton. How have you used CloudSpot to kind of streamline your workflow while you're on the go constantly?
Yeah. So let's see. Let me know if you can see what I'm looking at.
Yes. Yep, your screen is nice and
So
big, so
cool. So within CloudSpot, you can create basically your own mini website. This is your portfolio. And so in here, you can you can hide, you can choose what you want to show people, but you can, if you just click commercial, this is kind of like my commercial website. You can see. So I've done some
mhm.
glassware, a huge Capital One shoot that I did, Lyft. Like this is all my commercial work from the past little bit. There's the national parks. And so, these are just the photos. Like obviously I have a different video website, but this is like what I send people,
Mhm.
commercial clients when they're like, hey, like I love your stuff, but I have to be able to show my boss that like you're legit. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And so I'll just send him this is my portfolio site. I'll just send him this. And then it's not even, I hear back within 10, 20 minutes. They're like, oh yeah, your stuff is amazing. Like we would love to work with you. It's like a shoe in, right? And you
Right.
kind of just have to have something. Like obviously I would love to have a full commercial website and have it be branded and designed. But, like I said, it just kind of really broke in this world full time, maybe like 3 years ago. So, um, still learning a lot
And this is
and
so
work
easy to do, and you can do it
super.
within your CloudSpot account. It's included in your CloudSpot account. So creating a portfolio, if
Yeah.
you don't have a full branded website yet, is the way to go.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I can close this out, but there's our infinity
There
room.
we go.
So I use that mobile gallery a ton. And then just because I'm not always sitting at my desk on my computer, I usually am on my phone when I'm traveling somewhere and I'll get like, hey, like we need to show this client 100 photos that you've done lifestyle with some random, like, it needs to show like this type of work. It needs to show this type of model or this type of location. And but within CloudSpot, I can, on my phone, I can kind of just go through my like overall commercial work. Like I just uploaded everything to one gallery, and I'll pick like 50 photos that kind of match their whatever they need, and hit create gallery on my phone, get a link, text it right to them, and it's like, here's a curated portfolio for exactly what you need, versus just sending them the whole whole website or whatever. Because what I've found with commercial work and brands, they don't really care if you've done other work in other spaces. Like, they want to know that you can do what they need specifically.
Right.
And so sometimes it's very specific what they're like looking for. And so I'll try to like curate a gallery on CloudSpot, as quickly as I can, when that happens. So, but like I said, most of my stuff does come from word of mouth, and from referrals. So anyway.
Yeah. I love that you can use it on the go. It's so nice. I know you did a reel for us a while back about your client texting you. I think she texted you asking you for the gallery, and you were able to quickly send that off. So that's another request that I get sometimes, is a bride will create her favorites, right? And she only wants to send her favorites out to like her friends and family. She doesn't want to send like all 400, 300 photos of her getting ready. And so CloudSpot definitely makes it super easy just to create those like little galleries and private links that I can, she hearted 300 of her favorites, clicked in that in CloudSpot. I found the favorites, created a gallery of just those images, and then sent them to her, and then she could send it off to her family and friends really easily. And she was like, how did you do that? It's super amazing. So yeah, my clients are also always impressed when they ask for something like that. They're like, well, I only want to send I do family and newborn. They're like, I only want to send the newborn photos. I don't want all the other album or folders sent. And it's just so easy to go into your CloudSpot account and create a new gallery with that one folder and send it off.
Yeah.
And it leaves your clients impressed. And I'm sure that goes into a little bit of the, the word of mouth and spreading the word about your business like that, instead of using social so much. Totally. It's just having a good experience for your clients.
Yeah. That I feel like is number one, because especially, like bride and grooms, like they remember how they feel throughout the day.
Definitely.
And way more than, and the photos represent how they feel, right? So it's like, I try to make sure that their experience is like top notch, and whether that's getting them drinks throughout the day, making sure they have water, make sure they have space if they need it. Just, hey, I want to get a photo of just you kind of thing, clear the whole room. And then they're like, okay, like let's take this. And I was like, no, I just did that just for you, just so you could have a moment to breathe,
Right.
I don't even need to take photos at this moment. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like just making sure like I'm taking care of them throughout the whole day, and creating like these little moments, whether it's between her and her dad or him and his mom, and trying to making sure that I remove as much stress throughout the day, and then I add like these little moments of that, end up meaning a good amount in the end. And then the photos reflect that. They look back on the photos like, oh my gosh, like it was such an amazing day, and I felt so good like the whole day. And I was like, when they say that, I'm like, yes, like I did my job.
Definitely.
Anyway.
All right, so we've got some questions popping up in the group. So I'm going to just show them on the screen, and we'll go from there. So what is your favorite piece of advice for photographers getting started in wedding and commercial?
Yeah, I would say you kind of got to, like I said earlier, you kind of got to do the thing that you want to be hired to and get paid to be photographing. So like when I got hired, to shoot the national parks, I had already done 10 national parks myself. And at the beginning of my career, when I had all those weddings and I just graduated college, I traveled to Europe all by myself for like a couple of weeks. I went around to probably like 10 different countries, because a lot of the time, even with weddings, like clients don't want to hire somebody to do a destination wedding and feel like they're giving them, the photographer, like a free vacation.
Mhm.
There's the difference is like, hey, I feel like, he just wants a free vacation. He's trying to just like get me to like bring him to Italy, versus like the client saying, thank you so much for taking all that time to travel all the way over here to like be with us and shoot our wedding. It's a very different, it's like small, but it's a very different mindset in a client's mind. And so the fact that I travel a ton, I've shot in probably like 50 different countries.
It's amazing.
Clients almost have, which is, I love travel a ton. But when people think about hiring me, they're like, oh yeah, he travels all the time. And we can trust that like he's going to be able to like get there. He's going to get there in advance. He's going to be able to navigate the country and navigate the cities and navigate like getting to the venue and working out like all the logistics and different languages and different whatever it is to like come to my wedding and get amazing photos. And that's like the biggest hurdle, right? Is like convincing people that, no, yeah, fly me halfway across the world to come shoot your wedding versus just hire somebody a lot closer.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite country that you've been to, or a favorite place that you've shot?
I'm going to Italy in like 5 days for a wedding, and Italy is probably one of my favorite places to shoot weddings. Like I love Italy is just so diverse in its landscapes, right? And just everything there is beautiful. And obviously I love Italian food and wine and all that stuff too. But it just, allows, it's hard not to take good photos in Italy.
Yeah. Will you be posting any behind the scenes stuff on social media with that? Can we follow along?
I would love to do that. My wife is also coming, and she's amazing at behind the scenes, so she'll probably be.
Yeah, yes. I would love to see some. Let's see. Okay. And if you have questions, go ahead and start dropping them in the chat so that we can keep up with them. Let's see here. Whoa. Why would a client fly a photographer to Italy? Surely there are enough photographers there already. So
I love that question. That is there's a lot of amazing Italian photographers. But I think, so I actually go to Italy a good amount for, I work with like a coffee brand, and I do a lot of product stuff. And so they're from the Netherlands. So how did they find us? So they found me because I was shooting a wedding of one of their friends in Italy, and they're like, oh my gosh, we would love to use you for our product stuff. Like, do you come back over here? Would you come back over here? Yes. And so they hired my buddy and I to come shoot for their coffee company for like 4 days. And we like toured wineries, and we took boat tours and like did all the like super amazing, cool Italian things. And they just wanted documented. They basically just wanted to be documented while being there. And, I think a big reason why I would get hired versus, someone else is just trust, right? They know me. I'm easy, well, hopefully I'm easy to be around. Like I'm pretty chill, laid back. I get a lot of cool photos and get a lot of work done without kind of like taking over or being obtrusive or adding stress. Like, they wanted to show off their whole like process of making coffee in Italy and then shipping it to the Netherlands. And so they're bringing me to like all of their friends' houses and all of their like friends' villas and wineries that they're connected with, and all their roasters and all this. And so if you're just kind of like that can be a weird space. Like, hey, can you want to just come and travel around with me for 4 days? If you bring somebody who's awkward or weird or just makes it miserable, like that's going to be a miserable 4 days in Italy.
Yeah.
So I would like to think that, most of it has to do with trust. Like they've built a relationship with me. We're friends already. Anyway.
I think that goes back to just how important the client experience is, how strong word of mouth can be when it comes to marketing. Because if you have a friend who had an amazing experience with you shooting a wedding and they say you like, I would never have hired anyone else. If they tell their friend that, well, they're going to hire you.
Yeah, 100%.
No matter how many other photographers are out there, they're probably
Yeah,
going
because
to hire you.
I'll be the first to admit there's like a lot of better photographers than me out there as far as commercial stuff. And like there's if you want to hire somebody to do, like food and drink and lifestyle, I mean, there's people that they use motor oil for like syrup, and they have all these like crazy tricks for like making food look awesome. But and while I've like learned some of those along the way, and I use some of those like tricks and how to light stuff, there's people who've done it for a decade, when I've just kind of started into it. So I think people are really hesitant to kind of start into a field that already feels very saturated. But with the connections that I've made and the friendships I've built, it's just, they want to hire me. They don't want to hire somebody that they don't know. And they trust me. They trust my work. They trust my like work ethic and my communication. I try to stay really on top of, communicating back and forth well, with anybody that I work with. And so all that stuff ends up being pretty important to people. I asked Capital One this question because they hired me out of nowhere. I have no idea why they hired me or how they found me or anything. And I was talking to the main lead about it, and I was like, "Hey, this might be like a weird question, but like, why did you hire me?" Because I don't actually know. And they're like, "Actually, you're just you responded really, really fast to all of our communication. I didn't think it was that fast, and like you're just honest about what you would charge for shooting for us for 3 days, and we know we're Capital One. We know we have a lot of money, but it didn't feel like you're trying to gouge us in every single part. Like you're just like, this is what I charge for it, and this is what you're going to get." And that's why they hired me, is because of like consistent, quick communication. So
I think that's so underestimated in in the industry, honestly. Responding quickly shows, they want to know that you want to work with them too.
yeah,
And I feel like a lot of photographers can get caught up in, just the work in general. There's a lot that goes into running a photography business. But fast communication is something that, again, it relates back to word of mouth. People will talk about you. They responded quickly. They were on top of the game. It all goes back to word of mouth and them having a good experience and spreading the word about you.
totally.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if we've got any other questions. I think I'm going out of order here, so I'm going to try to, as you're talking, I'm going to try to go back through and make sure I didn't miss any. But have you ever taken a free photo shoot just to practice?
Like, have I done a free photo shoot, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I believe so.
So that has come into play. Like I said, I've been shooting for 17 years. I can't do math. Maybe 18 years now. And so in my 18 years of shooting, I've definitely done a lot of like free stuff, or like I've shot for like less than what I wanted to make, or just either being unsure or not knowing what to charge, or not knowing, not having worked with a client or with people before, and just like everyone has to learn that stuff the hard way sometimes. And for me, like the first time I did the national parks, like I did all of that on my own. I did it for fun, right? And then it was like I paid to go to 8 national parks because I loved it. So it's not like I wasn't expecting to book anything out of that, but
Right.
kind of a dream that it happened. I will say, so I just moved to Chattanooga, like I said, like a year and a half ago, and I got this random inquiry from the Chamber of Commerce, and they're like, "Hey, we have headshots that we need to be taken um, for like a couple hours, and we only have $500 for the, for like 2 or 3 hours to like do these like headshots. We're having this job fair, and we just want to give people free headshots if they come in." I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Why not? $500, sure. And so I ended up showing up. It ended up being like not that many people to go through, so I didn't take like that many headshots. But they sent their boss my work, and they sent their boss my portfolio from CloudSpot, and they called me up like probably just last week, and they're like, "Hey, we're redoing our entire website, and we need a ton of photo and video stuff and it's Chamber of Commerce, right? So they're like working with brands like Volkswagen and Coca-Cola and all these like bigger companies here in Chattanooga, and they're like, and all these like restaurants, and like, we want to hire you to basically redo our entire website. Like, we love your work so much." And I was like, cool. That's amazing. What's your budget for it? Because I'm thinking like, if they only paid me $500, I'm like, like, sure, I can go to 10 restaurants and get all this food and life off, and I can go to all these companies, but like, that's like a big undertaking. And they're like, well, we're thinking a budget around like $30,000. Like, would that work? And I was like, yes, that is a great budget for that. Like, I'm thinking like they're gonna say like 3,000 or like 4,000, which
Right.
be a lot of work for 4,000. I have to be like, well, I can only go to like these restaurants, and I can only do some photos here, some video here. But with a budget like $30,000, like, I can do a whole lot more. That covers a lot of video and a ton of photo at a lot of corporations, a lot of restaurants, and I'm going to get them amazing stuff. But there's no way I would have booked that if at the beginning I said, no, sorry, I charge I charge a whole lot more for headshots, and I'm not going to take that job. Right? If I would just declined it, then they would have moved on, found somebody else to do it, and I wouldn't have been presented with a much larger opportunity, right? And so, yeah, free stuff, close to free. It's how they ask, and it's in what way they ask. If I can tell they're being genuine, and if I can tell, a lot of that is like just kind of trying to deduce.
Yeah. I think that relates back to, I've seen a question pop up a few times on here about just how to get clients in general. I think you can relate what you just said to that. If you do take on free sessions, those kind of things lead to bigger things normally. Not always, but they can. Do you have any, just like one quick piece of advice for getting clients? Because I know that has popped up 1 or 2 times now.
Yeah. So a lot of times what I do is I hit up the creative director or the director of marketing at a brewery or at a company or at wherever. Their email is either on LinkedIn or on their website, or just write whatever email is on their website, and I ask if I can be connected to their director of marketing for a photo shoot idea. And I'll usually just present like, hey, I want to do like a styled shoot at your brewery or at your company or in your hotel. Is that something that you'd be interested in? Just giving me like licensing basically the space, the location for me to do, and I'll give you the images to use. And so I'll take a company that is paying me, X amount of dollars to photograph their product in this space. I'll do the whole shoot. I'll spend like half a day or a whole day at that location. And then I'm working with the creative director at that hotel or at that restaurant, at that bar. And they go, oh, wow, like you did this is like a full production. Like, you brought in models, you brought in makeup, you were like handling wardrobe, lighting. It was a bigger shoot than we thought. And I sent them the images to use for their stuff. And they're like, this is amazing. So who are they going to use the next time they need a brand refresh, right?
Exactly.
And I've found that is the biggest difference between wedding photography and commercial photography for me, is that weddings are a little bit of a one-off. You do a ton of marketing. You put a ton of work into posting, a ton of work into building that, you know, the friendship with the client, and they get married, and that's it, right? Like it's kind of one job and it's done. And it's a lot of marketing to get that one job, which is totally fine. But sure, they might hire you to shoot their, you know, maternity photos, which I usually refer to other photographers, or baby photos, or refer maybe family photos. But like, I will shoot some. I'm not like, again, it's not my niche, right?
Right.
There's amazing photographers that I know that do family photos and videos that are incredible. And I'd rather refer to somebody who's like loving it versus me, you know, like, I guess I can do it. But with commercial world, you know, Amazon hires me once a quarter to do a bigger shoot for Alexa Auto and another brand of their Amazon branch or whatever. And then Just for Men hires me once a quarter as well. There's like a number of, Capital One hires me twice a year to do big. So like, and I've been doing that stuff ever since I started. Like once I did one job with them, I'm their person.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so it's with commercial stuff, it's the same customer, it's the same client, versus like the weddings you're doing a ton of marketing for that one-off. With a commercial client, once you book a bigger client, they end up wanting to use you over and over and over, which their budgets are usually pretty high. And so it's just a little bit more job consistency for me, in the sense of like, oh, I can plan out my year because I know for the next 3 quarters they're going to hire me once a quarter, pay me this amount, and that gives me a budget to like, not only for my family, but gives me a budget to like, I'm going to hire my friends to shoot, you know, to be the director of photography for this job. I'm going to hire my friend who does sound design for this job. I'm going to hire my friend to do storyboarding for like these. I can like kind of plan out who I want to hire for like more of a year out, versus weddings. It's just a different world.
It is. We do have a wedding question. I'm going to put it up on the screen. What's the best advice you can give for shooting my first wedding reception? I have one camera body and off-camera flash, but what's the best way to get the best shots?
That's awesome. I will show you exactly what I do. This might out me as lazy photographer. However, it works.
If it's good advice and it works, then we're all for it.
So for receptions, I try to shoot as much natural light as I can. I like, with the camera technology nowadays, it's just really easy to get natural light. And I even if it's like a little bit darker and a little bit grainy, I find that it's more artistic. It's less obtrusive. Like if the first dance, the whole room is, you know, dark, and I'm just like flash, 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 flash. I don't like being that much of like in their like face, and it's like this. I don't want to be a distraction for all the guests either. So this is I have a 15-35. Most of the time I leave it on 15, and then I'll put my flash right on top, point it straight at them. I don't use any filters or anything, but what I do is my settings. For my flash settings, I shoot all manual, and I shoot at 1/64 minus 0.07. I'll write all these settings later, but manual flash 1/64 minus 0.07. I shoot at 15 millimeters, and then for my actual camera settings, I put it on 1/20th of a second, f4, and ISO 400. Boom. And I find that dancing photos especially just can be kind of awkward, like especially if you're zoomed in, people just look weird and they're lit odd. And so I'll do a shutter drag, so I'll spin the camera as I take the photo, so it'll be print. And what that does is, you can kind of see it actually. Horrible. But it creates this kind of like blurred, circled effect. And so the flash will have the people in front of you perfectly in focus. but everything else is kind of blurred and kind of gives the photo some like motion. And that's all I use for receptions. Like I have used strobe lights on tripods, stands, with diffusers and all the crazy stuff, and trying to bounce it off ceilings. But especially because I shoot a lot of international weddings or places where I'm traveling to a different state.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a ton of gear, and I don't want to check stuff. And so this setup right here, it's amazing. And my client, they love the photos. They're like, oh, they love the dancing photos. I feel like a lot of times they hire me because I love being on the dance floor with them. So hopefully that helps. Happy to like write out those settings though, and respond in that comment. So just let me know where that is, and I'll do that.
Yeah, and you're always active in our community group. So if you have questions for him that you realize, after we get off of this live, feel free to drop them in the comments. Just tag Josh; he's in the group too. I don't see any more questions coming in. So before we hop off, can you tell everyone where we can find you on social media or wherever you hang out?
It's a great question. My main thing is Instagram. Josh is at Josh Newton. But if you want to see more of like day-to-day life and well-produced, funny videos, my wife, at JJ Barrows, is amazing. And she actually posts a whole lot more than me. And she makes fun of me for being a photographer and not posting more, which is totally deserved. But she is awesome, and she posts a lot more. You'll see me behind the scenes way more there than on my own Instagram.
Yeah, we want to travel with you to Italy. So I'll drop all of those links in the comments. But
we can work that out.
This has been wonderful. Let us know if you liked it. Leave some comments in the Facebook community. And this will stay live in the Facebook group, also going on YouTube a little bit later in the week. But thank you again for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge with, everything commercial and weddings.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We will talk to you later, Josh. Thanks.
All right. Bye.